Welcome to Storybook Mountain. I'm Jerry Seps, the custodian, if you want, of this hill, tractor driver, winemaker, bill payer, all those good things. We came up here in 1976, and when we did so, I came from an academic background. We didn't have a lot of extra money, and our goal was really to find a piece of land on which we could raise a family and, do what I would call kind of a Renaissance recreation. We really literally started with an abandoned vineyard. It had been abandoned for 12 years. And we wanted to bring back this land from really non-productive status to something that was respected worldwide. And that meant a lot of things. It meant taking care of the land, yes, but also selecting the right varieties to go with the land. We started out looking at the soil. We've got kind of a red clay loam up there. And those that are familiar with the different soil types kind of indicates that eliminates half the world of wine because that's a red wine soil. We are a relatively cool site though. We face east. We are on the ridge line between the two valley systems. The other side of those trees is Franz Valley and Sonoma County. And there's a chalk hill gap out to the west of us. And that brings in the breezes over this vineyard. We also face east, and those two factors actually make our vineyard one of the coolest in the north part of the valley, certainly, and 10 degrees cooler than, let's say, the east side of the valley by St. Helena, which is the hot spot in the valley. So we have this kind of coolness, we have a particular topography, particular soil, and our exercise were twofold. One, to create that kind of match of rootstock and vine and grape, I should say, and produce what the land did best. And then to help that along, we wanted to take care of the land. And in that regard, we've never used insecticides or herbicides in all 32 years. I guess maybe we were a little ahead of the curve at that point. Also, there are a lot of good reasons that a vineyardist might do this, not only for the health of the land, and that's certainly part of it for us, but health of the vineyard workers. We're fortunate we have the same family work for us for 32 years now. They are rarely absent, rarely have any illnesses. They're not subject to the kind of things that happen when you spray insecticides and herbicides on vines. Well, this is an example of some of the things that we're doing in the vineyard. We mow on one side, and then usually the second row we disc. That's because we put in a cover crop. We put in clover and vetch and peas. That's to keep the soil enriched, give it the right basis. And when you're organic farmers, as we are now, you try to look for those kind of things to aid the vines on. We will use, depending on the area and what the vines have done the previous year, we use things like blood meal and bone meal and just, supplements to help the vine. But basically what we need to have, what we try to get, is a healthy vine. Because we feel that balanced vines will make balanced wines. We came up here for the beauty of the place. Why take out an oak tree like that, or these lovely pines? So there's a redwood grove that sits right there. It's kind of in the middle of the vineyard. A little awkward for tractoring sometimes, but we look at it and we love it. And we look at this land and we still, I don't know how to explain it. I guess, you kind of drive up from the valley up to Storybook here, and you go through that little wooded area on those curves as you come up the hill here. Then you come in our gate. And I say those hills, that little wooded area, is my moat from the real world. I come back in here and I'm still excited. After 32 years, we still have this great, almost an adrenaline rush after we've been away for a few days and then come back here. Well, the Cabernet that's planted on this hill is a perfect example of what we're talking about. That is, trying to match grape rootstock with a particular area in the vineyard. And we've become much more specific in that regard. That particular hill comes down, it's fairly vertical as you can see, but it's unusual, and we had never planted it because it faces north. Mount St. Helena up there is north. And that's a very cool exposure. and we felt it was not appropriate for Zinfandel, and we'd been a Zinfandel house for at that point a couple of decades. And about 14 years ago we decided that, well, we should make full use of our land. So we planted that hill, a particular rootstock, and two particular clones of Cabernet, clone 4 and 337 and clone 6, both relatively low yielding clones. But the important thing is that we found a spot where you had a cooler exposure, so you have longer hang time, you develop greater intensity in the grapes. But also, if you look at that hill, you note that it's vertically run. We're not terracing the hill, we're not cutting into the soil. And we felt we had, equipment that was powerful enough to go up and down those hills. And by not terracing it, but rather working with the land, with the curvature of the land, that we disturb the soil much less. One of the things that also we're unique about is we really become very, compulsive, I guess would be a polite word to call it, when it comes to crush. We have a rule here that no grape is more than 40 minutes from the time it's picked anywhere in this vineyard to the time it's actually in a fermenter, because we feel we want to have control. We've spent so much time raising what we feel are beautiful grapes that we want them to get into the fermenter, get into the situation where they're going to yield their best under controlled circumstances. So we don't let them sit out in the sun. And again, it's 40 minutes. And I'm there. We put the stemmer crusher right over here by the tanks. And my position is to unload the grapes, and I actually look at every single bunch. Now, every winery should have at least one carved oval. So when we started out, we managed to find these ovals in Germany. Part of the story for the oval was that we'd done a little bit of research about this vineyard. And we knew that it first cultivated in 1883. And it was cultivated by two brothers named Grimm. Now, we had a place that was called the Grimm Vineyards in Wine Vaults. Obviously, we didn't want to rename it quite that way, so we got Storybook Mountain. But having done the research, we discovered that these two brothers did come from a small town called Mannheim in Germany. So we put the coat of arms for that village on the oval. And when the oval was finished, when the carving was finished, the employer of the carver put it in a brochure and he sent it out to other German winemakers, in effect saying, see what I can do for you. And it ended up in the hands of the mayor of this small village, 3,000 people. And he immediately contacted the employer of the carver and said, what on earth is our coat of arms doing on an oval bound for the Napa Valley? Well, the short part of it is that he was the head of the family that actually settled this vineyard. And they've been in the wine business since the 1500s, same spot. And it turned out in the middle of the 19th century they had 6 boys, which is about 4 too many for the vineyard to support. And 2 of them ended up here. So that's how we got our start, Brothers Grimm. And then my wife is also German. She comes from Franconia, now part of Bavaria, so we have the Bavarian coat of arms. We have the Russian coat of arms here. My family comes from the Crimea. We're peasants, but you really need to have coats of arms on your ovals. That's all part of it. We have 3 caves that go back into the hill here, represented here. And you can still see the pick marks left by the Chinese when they dug these caves, we feel in the mid to late 80s, probably completed in 1889. Brothers Grimm, if you remember your fairy tales, didn't collect very many that had to do with wine. So we borrowed Aesop's Fables, The Fox and the Grapes is our particular logo. Now I'm Jerry Seps, and Seps Cabernet is what we have here in my left hand, and Storybook Mountain is the name of the vineyard we've had for the last 32 years, and that's in my right hand. So, enjoy.